Welcome back and hello everybody, I'm Trevor Quickshow Henry, joined alongside Mitch Crepper Forceballs and Isaac Azale Cummings Bentley.
That was quite the close-up.
That was super close-up.
By the way, if you ever need advertising space right here, I got an aspect slot ready, maybe we can get that income, get G2 to play a little bit better, later on today.
Well, we're going to find out. They're about to take on the Flash Wolves G2. They've sucked in all of their early games. They have had one good early play against SKT.
The EU guy said it for me. My job here is done.
Look, it's been a rough start to many of the games for Europe's #1.
Unfortunate mishaps happen. But what's most important is that when in this tournament, where there was redemption being sought after by G2, there's another shot at a second redemption right now, because everybody's tied.
Yeah, everyone is tied, and the parity in this tournament has been pretty insane. I think that Flash Wolves, though, have been looking better throughout their games. Yes, they lost earlier today to SKT, but they played a reasonable game, and after day one, they've been on an upswing.
Yeah, they have indeed, and unfortunately G2, they moved out of the all eggs in the Sven basket, as Crepper talked about on the analyst desk yesterday in great detail, and it didn't work out for them today, unfortunately. A little bit of a depressing loss to TSM after bouncing back from a terrible early game once again.
I mean, to me, it's one of those things where you can point at pick ban, you can point at strategies and stuff, but it comes down to execution a lot of times in these tournaments. And I think that Trick has not been playing well. I think you have to look more to something like that than you look at the pick ban.
Yeah, you have to indeed. And of course, if we step back and look at now the bottom 5 teams as a whole, all tied at 2 wins and 3 losses. This truly is an MSI that is 1-5. SKT 5-0, and the 5 other teams now fighting for those remaining playoff spots. What is the magic number of wins here, guys, that gets you safe, that gets you that pool 1 seed towards Worlds? I mean, is it clear cut?
I mean, all of them, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think you're shooting for at least 5 to have some feeling of safety, and that gets pretty tough. You have 5 gamers remaining. You're probably going to lose to SKT. That means you're looking to win 3 of your next 4 against a very tough field of competition.
Yeah, that definitely means the pressure is on here for both these teams heading into Champ Select. I want to see Trick honestly get that Graves, even if it comes at a cost. He seems to be very thrown off in the jungle, even if he gets kind of the signature Lee Sin that he's supposed to be good on. They tunneled a bit on the steal. I really just want a fast-paced jungle that has a lot of options when things go wrong for Trick.
Things have been going on for Trick a lot in the opening games, despite some great kicks earlier today. His early game has been fairly weak. Now, G2 eSports, they ban out Rumble, LeBlanc, Syndra. On the side of Flash Wolves, it is Kennen, Lulu, I see Karma, and Ivern still up and available.
Yeah, don't want to get surprised early on by maybe a third red side mid pick that then gets the counters banned out. Some of these more tricky champions are out. Flash Wolves, if they leave Karma open, it's going to be a really tricky situation on the other side.
Yeah, and I mean, they can go for that route, leave Karma open. You also can try to force the choice between making a jungler first pick or the support first pick. This way here, it's probably going to be a Graves for a Lee Sin type trade, one way or the other. I
would imagine so, and I think G2 Esports is actually really happy with this pick ban, getting both Karma and Lulu banned away, because I don't think that's where they would find a success.
Yeah, I agree, and I think one of the interesting choices here for G2 is if you don't care which side of the jungle matchup you play, you can take something else that you prioritize more highly, but in this case, they are focused on that Graves.
Yeah, because they do care. It's been Trick's best champion overall, because his Lee Sin isn't working as well as it did in the European LCS and his other champions. Rengar saw some nerfs. He never really was an Elise player. So with that in mind, wanting to first pick the Graves, they've been given the gift that they're not giving up any of these super strong shielding supports.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not going to be willing to go to the Ivern, it seems, without a secondary shielding type champion to play one of the Protect the Sven comps. And as expected, I think we are going to see Lee coming back.
Is this worrisome? We've seen Peanut get his hands on Lee Sin time and time again. Karsa also famous for his Lee Sin. And Karsa has had a very good game so far during the first round robin. Now that we're in the second round robin, is that a gamble?
Most great Karsa games though come from him getting a really nice early gank off. This level 2 gank in the top side, maybe switching sides up level 2 or 3 behind the bot lane with Graves, etc. If G2 prevent that from happening, then they should be able to outpace with the Graves, and the reaction isn't really that surprising here with the Zyro Lee Sin.
I agree, and I think that generally speaking in this tournament, when teams play to their strengths instead of trying to exploit their opponent's weaknesses or account for something like that, they have more success. So it makes sense to put Trick on his strongest champion, even if you're giving Karsa over something that he's also very comfortable on.
Yeah, and they're also attacking the strengths on Flash Wolves. They're basically telling Flash Wolves, you pick your mid laner here, or we're going to make that mid lane matchup even more annoying with the early Orianna. With Syndra and LeBlanc out, she is one of the safest blind pick mids you could do. There is maybe like a Talia that could get picked into it for push, but they can remove that in second ban phase.
Second ban phase is going to kick off, and Flashwolves going to go for the blind Kled in the top lane. A couple of counters up there. I mean, Rumble's taken away. It was one of expects most played champions during the splits, and Expect as well, also struggling to find his groove this tournament so far.
And I mean, I think that Expect certainly can default to something like just a tank champion. I think there's a lot of tank matchups that are pretty comfortable into the Kled. So I don't think that it's a super big concern. Generally, the Kled has been used, you know, Krepo talked about this, as a counter to things like Rumble and, and certain champions like that. So I don't think it's a big measure for concern just yet. One thing I would be a little bit concerned about if I'm G2 is if you get a strong laning AD carry for Flashwolves, something like, you know, Caitlyn, although Betty's not really super comfortable on it, that could be really tough for Tahm Kench to lane into with Zyra.
Yeah, but Mithy is quite experienced in that matchup in the Tahm Kench. I think we need to track what he skills very early on. He generally goes for a very early thick skin and then tries to have presence in the lane to aid his positioning for minion push that way. The good thing is that they have comfort on the Orianna in the mid lane. They banned out Talia and Rai, so Maple is under pressure. And I don't see MMD just hard carrying top lane if Expect gets his hands on like a Gragas, maybe a Nautilus, but I would just love to see Gragas picked up here on the side of G2 Esports, and then they have plenty of options.
Yeah, I mean, even something like Shen, if you are worried about side wave control, can, I think, work out quite well here. There's pretty much everything on the board for top lane as far as the tanks go, so you can go a lot of different routes.
Well, a lot of tanks available. What will G2 decide? We see the Jhin once again locked in for Betty. One of the champions that's seen a little bit of play, definitely a fringe pick at MSI.
And it is interesting because Betty has just stuck to his comfort picks. Jhin is one of the things he likes to play. He essentially only plays the supportive AD carries, but taking this over the Ashe and the Varus, he used it earlier in the tournament to great success, had a deathless game, something like 606, and despite it not being meta, he's playing comfort.
Well, it's going to be going into the hyper carry. This time around, Sven's going to be running the Twitch. Going to have some safety, some shielding from the Orianna, the Tahm Kench, and now potentially Shen as well.
Exactly. I think that it does lead towards the Shen. When you do pick up that hyper carry, you're adding in the Orianna shields, the protection from the Tahm Kench, as well as the added safety net of that Shen.
And also, if the Tahm Kench does lock on, you have that zone from the Vorpal Blade from the Shen that just prevents all these auto attacks, right? That is usually enough for Sven to get out of the fight stand. I personally would have liked to see a Varus, because I think you can, as Kled charges in, can ult him, and then the ulti will spread to his teammates that kind of travel with him. But he finds more success, or seems to want to play a lane with more range later on.
Talking about range later on and talking about scaling, Vladimir, what do you think of this one for Maple into the team comp that G2's put together?
I mean, Flashwolves is going all in on the backline dive, right? They say Betty doesn't need any appeal because he's so far removed from the fight with W and R that he can just kind of fend for his own. And then it's all up to Karsten to get those signature flanks off, but hopefully MMD pincers and Maple just flashes in.
And I think that the Kled-Vladimir combo is actually something that is quite strong because you can utilize the ultimate as a way in on the Vladimir. A lot of people talk about the difficulties that Vladimir has getting to backline, but this is a low mobility Twitch. This is a speed up from MMD here too, and I think that with the Jhin ultimate being opened up, there's a lot of chaos that could be created in a fight.
And I think we see again here that Flashwolves come with the offensive strategy here, and G2, they have drafted things that could react well. You know what, Kled ultis, I'm just going to walk up and take it for my team. We see Vladimir dive, we'll use Devour. The problem is, every time G2 has drafted a reactionary composition where they have all the answers, they have fumbled in the early game, and then they just got ran over.
Yeah, you have to survive early game in order to be able to react later game and have your team comp come together. But on the side of G2, it does feel like the Flashwolves comp will be relatively difficult to execute. No traditional frontline tank. A lot of fairly squishy, high-damage champions, especially as the early to mid-game rolls out.
I definitely agree it is hard to execute, but if you get ahead, I think this comp is incredibly snowbally. If you have a strong tank who can step up and tank that Kled charge, great. But if you're behind, that tank just gets evaporated right off the bat, and the fight is essentially over. So, you know, we need to see a strong early game from G2.
We need to see a strong early game. It hasn't happened in 5 games yet. Maybe in the 6th, it's the job. It's G2 Esports taking on Flashwolves. This is the first game in the 2nd round robin. Every team has faced everybody. G2 at 5-0, and you can see SKT at 5-0. G2 and Flashwolves now 2 wins, 3 losses. Every win counts because everyone is tied.
You may beat G2 in the early game 5 games in a row, Trevor, but nobody beats them in the early game 6 games in a row. This is their time to shine. They have the signature Graves, perks on Orianna, Sven and Mithy. Definitely looking forward to that laning phase.
Yeah, signature Graves, Trick, he's given up first blood in 3 of his 5 previous games. He actually donated first blood thanks to taking a Realm Warp the last time they played Flashwolves. So my eyes are on him and his impact whether positive or negative for the European LCS.
I'm also really interested to see how well they adapt going into the second round. Krepo, you talk a lot about how G2's strength is adaptation. They learn from the games they play. They're a very intelligent team, and now they have played everyone once. They have a fresh slate. Let's see what they can do.
Yeah, that is domestically when they have weeks and weeks where they first script these partners, they then analyze them, and then they bring the answers on the Rift, so why they were so far ahead in Europe. A couple things I wanted to track this game. Is MMD going to have like an early brush camp versus expect? No, he's already in the lane. I want to follow what Mythi will be skilling into the Zyra matchup. More importantly, how much CS Sven can get under pressure, because drafting Twitch is nice for late game, but it comes at a great cost early on.
Cost early on. G2, that's their problem. It's a tongue lash for Mythi right now. We'll see where the level 2 goes and what impact that has. Sawdust's done a good job of spreading those seeds and a little bit of assistance for Casa on the Brambleback.
Yeah, the tongue lash makes Tahm Kench at least have some ranged presence. You just want to walk up. They're actually happy with what's happening here. Sword Art spawning plants early forces the push. Now, if Mythi can draw an auto attack or two, the minions will attack whoever's aggressing on him, and then that will make the wave push. So essentially, that's what you're doing. Technically, Flash was here are over pushing. That could punish the jungler, but it doesn't look like Karsa's making use of that.
Yeah, and I think Flash Wolves really are just trying to shove it in as fast as possible to start harassing the Twitch under the turret. If you can start working away at these guys, it can work pretty well. And you know, something I do like to see in Tahm Kench lanes is a focus on the support. More often than not, that's the better target. Yeah,
you need to burn through these potions. The problem is if you play heavy like tower push against the Tahm Kench, it's quite risky because if he flash autos you with you, he will devour you and spit you into the turret, and then suddenly the jungle's there.
Well, where would Casa go? If I'm looking at these lanes, it feels like MMD should be able to push into expect early on relatively well. Maybe will be pushed in potentially by Perks, and Trick is setting up on this pushing lane down bottom. The tongue lash goes wide though. Betsy's able to sidestep. Summoner heals already used. Flashes thrown down. Exhaust traded as well. Get the gobble if you can. Modi gets one. That's not going to be enough for a kill just yet. Spits out Sword Art for first blood to G2.
And this is entirely pre-planned because Trick went Raptors, Red Skull Crab, and he was level 3. So either he found the ward early on, or he was running that one experienced squid. So G2, they're drafting these combat-heavy bot lanes that obviously play very weak into ranged push, but if you let them push, your jungler shows up. This isn't a plan in the early game for G2 Esports.
Yeah, your all-in is incredibly powerful, and having the Graves level 3 this early, Mythi and Sven are able to go full aggression, move in, and pick up pretty easy first blood, plus force all the summoners, which adds more threat of a return game.
Oh, I'm looking forward to those summoners being down, what that means, because both duo lanes, all 4 summoners are blown. Trick gets the assist, and the kill secure was picked up by Mythi. Take a quick glimpse of Maple being shoved in. No surprises on this Vladimir. He's going to be sitting under his turret for a long time, Azael.
Yeah, and I mean, he's pretty happy as long as he's not being bullied by this Orianna. He can scale up. You really do need to get some levels on the Vladimir to start going.
Yeah, I just checked. Trick did not kill a ward early on. See, he must be running that experience squint. So definitely predetermined right here. And this is great to break that continuous death by 1,000. Cuts in the bot lane. Poke lanes win by keeping you in lane, removing your potions. Getting that free base will help you so much.
And this is one of those adaptations we've talked about, something that is pre-planned. And sometimes pre-planned paths, clever routes like this, can be what breaks the funk of that early game.
That's definitely going to help out. Look at this, MMD, there's no Scarl yet. Follow that Rage meter. Pocket Pistol comes backwards and Trick gets a kill.
I was actually really scared that the smoke screen was going to trigger Scarl. Every damage instance gives you something, so you want to hit him with like big spells. Small hits over time get you faster to Scarl, I believe. So quite dangerous, but really good setup. Trick is back in his element.
I don't believe my eyes. This is a pre-level 6 Graves with 2 successful ganks in the 2 lanes that Flash Wolves will be pushing towards G2.
Yeah, this is exactly what we were talking about. It sounds like we need to get Trick on the Graves, and it is working out.
Yeah, I mean, you play to your comfort. He has strong gank assist in both top and bottom. His path has been intelligent, and I think that Expect also deserves a lot of credit. I mean, he was winning out on his trades very heavily, had MMD already dismounted, so Trick could come up for an easy cleanup.
And that might just be the communication finally getting back to the G2 lineup, because it's much more comfortable to trade aggressively if you know your jungler is going to help you in like 30 seconds in case it goes wrong, right?
Well, it's showing. 2 kills to 0 at 5 minutes. It's a little over 1,000 gold in the lead. Now, Casa finds the Sonic Wave. Tempest and Cripple comes out as well. Perks, no Shockwave to fire back, but he trades well with the Thunderlords.
Yeah, and that was never really something that's looking for a kill. Karsa gets some damage out. Vladimir's farming under his turret. It's just trying to help him with lane priority because Perks has no pots left.
Yeah, and also Maple, he took the brunt of that pick ban pressure. He got 2 mid laners removed early on. Then Orianna picked, and then the 2 best matchups into Orianna were banned out in the second ban phase, so he's had to dig deep for this Vladimir, and obviously Vladimir very early on suffers from getting pushed in.
Definitely does, but at level 6 now, Perks is chunked a little bit low, has no more potions. He has to respect the all-in potential that can come out from the Vladimir.
And that makes that gank so great, you know, sometimes just a little bit of pressure can tiptoe the matchups in the other way, but here's Trick in the bot lane again.
No summoners.
All right, gonna dash forward. Where's the dash? Shadow dash from Expect is gonna catch Sword on. Betty's the target as well. Expect's on the board. Sven gets another.
This is so well done by G2, forcing out Summoner's bot, killing top. They can Shen ult down because they have the experience advantage in that matchup too, and G2 just looks like they're firing on all cylinders. They've been so coordinated.
They look almost as good as the Gigabyte Marines in the early game.
Let's not be ridiculous here, Trevor.
Let's not give them too many compliments here, but they look like G2 in Europe. This is finally kind of the level of play, coordination, organization that we're used to seeing from them, just outclassing their opponents here with just very easy moves if you look at it. Yeah, what a surprise. You run but you use the Shen ulti, but if you time things well, you don't need the greatest mechanical outplays.
I think they even played very well within the fight. You know, Expect holding his taunt for a long time, seeing if he even needed it for the Zyra, and then uses it to secure the kill. It's just looking very, very good right now for G2.
Yeah, just a fantastic start, and G2 got themselves some control wards in the books. First sort of tier of items, but, you know, not a huge amount of pressure on the tower. Is going to be content with those kills thus far. G2, let's see how good their mid game's going to be if they can extend this lead further.
Yeah, they have to extend it. Flashes always react with vision as well, though. You see 3 control wards right there. They place them very well in unison, and they also defend that vision and build on it. So that is something that G2 need to watch out for. If they go for their signature kind of slow scaling game, Flashes will not hesitate to take the map back.
They definitely won't, and you also have to remember Karsa is now level 6, Vladimir is level 6. Karsa has his summoners up and certainly can make a play to try to get a kill and return some of the pressure back.
Mithy here as well. Look at the item build. You could afford a side stone, but why not upgrade your relic shield? You know, get a little bit more money in the bank here. They're very heavily focused on this laning phase.
And I think especially when you are actually just letting your opponent push you in like that, you don't necessarily need the wards out on the map.
As long as you can defend the control wards, that's definitely true here. But that could be a breaking point if they make one mistake. Suddenly, the lack of side stone may punish G2 eSports.
I'm looking at those control wards. Prepper, there's 3 on the bottom quadrant.
It's nice.
Karsa is going to get counter ganked now by Trick. Counter gank is a strong word. Actually, it is a counter gank. Trick goes in, into the line. Collateral damage gets fired. Here comes Expect. He's got Maple. Trick survives and takes Karsa with him.
Where did Expect come from? Nobody expected him. Suddenly, like, he just dashes in, rams a dagger through the opposition, and he just wins out that fight here. Another great roam from Expect.
Yeah, and I mean, Trick was in position as well. They read this gank like a book. They see Lee Sin at 6. They know that Perks is a summoner down, and Flash Wolves go for it anyway, and they got punished huge.
Yeah, we always talk Karsa Maple, Karsa Maple. Well, that's where the gank is going. If you look at, let's look at the top lane. That's pushed in. Bot lane is pushing in very heavily too. So like the only place the gank could go is in the mid lane.
And Expect was already moving before this gank even started.
He even dropped a control ward in the enemy jungle. Oh, it's so well played. Vorpal Blade travels and just finishes him off.
I mean, as soon as Maple flashes forward and Trick is right there, you know you made an oopsie, and it's like, oh, that feels bad.
It does. And looking at Trick, this game, 1-0-5. We're before 10 minutes. 3,000 gold lead, and compare it to the previous stats of this group stage.
Yeah, we're SKT right now. They're looking for the perfect tournament. G2, they're looking for the perfect game so far. Still on track, baby.
Very early start. MMD with those vicious strikes and a bear trap on a rope. He's going to be trading with Expect. Got himself the Tiamat, a small CS advantage, but Flash Wolves. Okay, G2 have done everything right for 10 minutes. You know, they've ganked well, they've had suitable vision. How do Flash Wolves bounce back from this significant of a deficit this early on?
I think it's looking for picks. I think it's utilizing the combination of ultimates with Glenn and Lee Sin and Vladimir. You know, despite being a bit behind, if you get the perfect engage and eliminate someone like that Twitch right off the bat, the fight can turn around.
If you can find that perfect engage. It feels very difficult. It's important to remember that when G2 played Flash Wolves 2 days ago, yesterday, Carolyn second, Trick gets traded on, Stand United, a touch late, not going to be the end of the world. They get Karsa's Flash though.
Yeah, this Flash, and more importantly, they're working together on vision as well. The arena is igniting here as well. I'm looking at some wave mechanics. While they're waiting for the wave to arrive here in the crowd, they're slapping their thundersticks. That's why these guys are so loud. They have optimized cheering here in Brazil.
Looks like Mithy is actually moving up mid, perhaps trying to help with that vision and really try to get some damage down on this turret because they're taking over the top side of the jungle.
Yeah, and with that mid pressure, actually, Mithy can just take somebody with him, taxi to the bottom lane. Perks and Mithy could arrive behind enemy AD carry and get bot turret from that. That is the strength of a Tahm Kench level 6. You really want to use that Abyssal Voyage to unlock objectives.
They do need to be careful, though. Betty is coming up. Jhin ultimate is available, but it's going to bail out on the play. All
right, couple of ultimates used to put pressure on this mid lane tower. Perks with the shockwave collateral damage as well. Taking a look at
here, Abyssal Voyage. I think they're going bot.
All right, MMD is going to jump back onto Skull and run away. There's the Abyssal. Down for tower, first blood still available. That would increase the gold lead to 5,000. However, Flash Wolves hold.
It's one of those satisfying sound effects. You know, like as a bot laner, when your support's gone and you hear that on the map, like, oh, they're coming for me. Backup's coming, and now Flash Wolves react bot, so mid gets pushed in. Like, just push and pull. Never really have to fight them. Use all these for pressure. If you have this gold lead, it's much easier to just get the turrets.
I'd also say the solo gold going over to Orianna is so good because this Orianna-Vladimir matchup really depends on who is outpacing the other. If you can stay ahead, the Vladimir never has a chance to kind of sustain you down, and if Vladimir's ahead, Orianna becomes helpless.
Orianna is not going to be helpless this game. 101 plus 20 CS. Already got a tower to her name. Another one in the bottom lane will fall quickly. And looking at the top, every time we jump top, by the way, Expect seems to be out-trading MMD's Kled thus far. He's got that Balmy Cinder Ninja Tab, and even though there's no damage on the tower, he's keeping MMD at bay.
Yeah, Kled is fantastic in the squishy matchups because he can really burst with Bear Trap on a rope, and that's really high damage and impact. The problem is, you're not going to burst through a Shen, especially if he gets an early gank. These like tank versus carry matchup, if the tank gets a good gank off and gets slightly ahead, Ninja Tabi and tank animation is just so efficient.
And this is also not a world in which this is a Kennen or a Fiora or something where it's just like, oh, he just gets his items, then he starts to win. It doesn't really work like that in this matchup. As long as the Shen can stay relevant, the Kled is not going to be able to just take over that lane.
Yeah, well, luckily for Expect, his entire team is relevant. Look down the kill score, 2-1-1. Everyone's got involved. It's a gigantic lead before 15 minutes. Take a quick look up top as MMD once again to the Bear Trap on a rope. A little bit of support from Trick in the river.
Ursa's coming up.
Soon. Actually, Trick has decided to back away. Expect to be under pressure. Cost are not going to find an opportunity.
Yeah, Expect needs to yield it. Looking at Perks, though, he used that solo goal that Zale was talking about earlier to really invest in magic penetration. If you get that early lead, just sitting in Lost Chapter is enough. You don't need to go full Omicron. Perks right now has really strong all-in potential. This is a very strong early spike for Orianna.
Especially because of Vladimir is not itemizing defensive. He's trying to rush towards that Proto Belt instead of sitting on something like a Negatron, which can really help to negate that advantage that Perks has.
And Maple's smart enough to know this, so he's never going to combat Perks. But what that means is Perks will push up the wave, disappear, and start influencing these side lanes. The only thing that can go wrong is right here if Expect dies.
All right, Expect's going to get pulled back by the Bear Trap. Skull is triggered. Caster's got the Dragon's Rage, and actually Expect is putting a lot of damage down. Mithy's brought Perks. That's one already with the attack and the dissonance. Shockwave not even going to get needed. There's the hula hoop sombrero. Perks doesn't need it. Still gets a double kill with the attack.
I mean, that one was looking a little bit desperate from Flash Wolves. That is a very healthy Shen who is ahead. You cannot burst this guy down like that.
By the way, that control ward that Expect put earlier, still inside the red corner of the jungle. That Betsy and Maple just walked past.
I love it when you talk dirty to me, Trevor. Right there. Very healthy Shen indeed. Eats his vegetables. That was just, grasping at straws. Every move by Flash Wolves is being read, and at this point, this is the point of the game where G2 has excelled in Europe. They know how to cleanly play out these games. The problem is they were always so far behind in the early game at this tournament that they couldn't really show their closing ability.
And I mean, this is just, MMD is almost ready to dismount. He's not ever going to have the amount of damage, and you can see Mithy is already moving up here with Perks, and even if they didn't come, this kill wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, but just the range at which this is possible too shows you the strength of the Tahm Kench in this tournament and why he'll likely become more of a meta pick within this tournament. With Perks was at the tier 2 turret. CG on a Vladimir. He takes 5 steps backwards, gets in the belly, arrives top, and helps.
A cheeky little grin there from Expect. 204 on his Shen. As it stands, 8 kills to 0, 8,000 gold up. I'm gonna wait for stats to verify, but I'm pretty confident that's the largest gold lead at 15 minutes across the group stage, and it's in the opening game of the second round robin.
And there's so much easy gold for them to pick up still. I mean, this bot tier 2 tower is one auto away. They have full pressure in mid lane. Top has already fallen. We just need to see how well G2 can close this out, because this should be their game from here.
Yeah, there's also 4 jungle camps up and a dragon, and that's something that is very often overlooked when you're playing so deep in the enemy map. Trying to rotate for these tier 2 turrets, a lot of teams forget that there's camps in their own jungle. They take away the opposition's jungle, but this is actually a mark of G2 domestically. They will take both sides of the jungle. That's why Trick doesn't have the highest activity, but he's very efficient in his pathing, and that it's so catered towards his Graves pick as well. No champion really clears much faster than him.
Yeah, it really suits the play style, and once Trick has enough power, uses that Graves to impact mid to late game team fights where he also has exceptional ability.
Yeah, especially on a champion like this where you can make a lot of use of the farm. Graves is not someone like the Lee Sin who's going to fall off as much. You're always a big contributor, especially against a relatively low-range team. With the Vladimir and the Lee Sin and the Kled, there's always someone for you to hit.
Yeah, and especially if you consider that Turgid got some nerfs, so if you play Graves into a full AP comp, the lack of MR you get from Turgid will maybe hurt you, but there is only Maple really that is bringing that sword art, maybe, but he's generally not going to interact too much with Trick himself, so Turgid's still very valuable if he comes into a duel against MMD, against Karsa, even against Betty.
I want to step back from this game just a little bit because it really has been the G2 show, right? And we talked about the results.
Let's stay here.
We talked about the results, 2 wins, 3 losses, and how every team now will play, again, 5 more games. The expected result you're going to lose to SKT, and every win you can pick up against Flash Wolves, WE, Gigabyte Marines puts you one step closer to playoffs in that Pool 1 seed for Worlds, which is the first reward at MSI.
It really does, and people have talked a lot about the pressure on G2, but what about the pressure mounting on Flash Wolves now? They were supposed to be the ones to challenge SKT. They're 2-3. They're now facing a 2-4 opening record, and they have not looked at all like the team we were expecting coming into this tournament.
Yeah, and they also came out and said it. I think it was Stake who said it doesn't matter how good you dominate domestically, you may just fall apart internationally because you can only smash teams so hard if they're not giving you enough opposition. That's the problem in G2 eSports as well. They dominate Europe overall. Even when the fans are against them, like in Hamburg, and then they come to an international tournament, these guys practice super hard. Like they really hate losing. It's not like they came out unprepared, and then like, dropping those early games was a big mental hit for them. I'm really glad to see them bounce back.
I really do think that in pro gaming, one of the things that you'll learn is you're only as good as your competition. It's so much harder to really move a tier above, and these teams are trying to do that and seeing the difference between SKT, who has those great practice partners, and some of the other regions who don't have as many.
But at the same time, though, we can't take things away from like the truly the greatest, like Faker. He will improve no matter what the competition. Or SKT, they constantly innovate the meta game. When they flexed the dual Karma in the finals versus KT, they just made them look like, honestly, like they were smurfing.
Yeah.
At certain points in the game. Even when KT got a lead, SKT still came back. So that is the greatness you see there. But overall, it is definitely true. Like if you have bad scrims and you get some gameplay patterns that you get away with, the same way with Svenskrim. Like those invades, they probably pay off a lot in scrims. The problem is on stage when you get against better players, you get punished.
Yeah, better players, higher pressure scenario. We talked about sort of play styles and histories. Look at these at 20 stats for G2 and Flash Wolves, obviously with the records they have. Not the greatest. First blood 20%. First tower, Flash Wolves pretty good at picking that one up. But both teams average a deficit as we get close to the 20-minute mark.
Yeah, Flash Wolves, they definitely are not getting that first tower even right now. 19 minutes in the game, 0 turns to 3, which is a very rare occurrence. And it doesn't seem like they can fight their way out of this gridlock.
Hey, perfect game. Still in the cards here for G2 Esports. Also, the previous gold lead record, MSI 2017, was around 7,000 gold at 20. It looks like G2 is going to break that record as well. So this will potentially be the heaviest handed defeat of MSI 2017. Perks and Expect going to try to take this inner turret down in the top lane. MMD has already popped off Scarl.
This shockwave there from Perks.
Second time this game. Trick in a 1v3 almost takes down Betty. Sonic Wave connects, but Karsa does not follow the Lee Syndrome. Support from Perks coming around, and Stand United still not triggered.
And in a similar fashion where you need to attack the global if you're playing versus Shen, you need to attack the engage if you're playing versus the Scarl. Because otherwise, there's nothing Flash Wolves can do. They can't flank engage with Zyra because she's a disengaged champion.
And I mean, one of the beautiful things about this game is anytime you see a fight happening somewhere, G2 is already getting something on the other side of the map. When you're this far ahead, it is not a 1v1 matchup. You need more players for every G2 person on the map. That means as long as G2 is pushing constantly and moving around the map map well, they can always take advantages elsewhere.
They can always go for the cross map. The only thing they need to do is then respect that when Flash will show up with 2 or 3 extra members, that they yield the pressure right there, not giving away needless advantages. This is why Kars is going a really large path around the bottom side. Flash was trying to get something.
Ah, look at Trick. He's already gone in. Hemoplate comes down. Stranglethorns is coming up. Stand United has bought enough time, and now Perks has arrived. Come on, protect. Keeps Trick alive.
Oh, the perfect game is gone.
The perfect game is ruined. Karsa sends his god fist into Trick's face. Now Karsa's running away with his life. Expect, misses the taunt because Karsa sidesteps. Still beautiful to behold on that champion.
I mean, Flash rolls, they get a kill on the board, but pressure top lane. It's already been pushed all the way in, and Sven is rotating around here. You can see him waiting in the side on a bush to see if anyone is going to try to defend this a little bit too boldly.
Yeah, already sitting on 2 items here. He can unleash and just kills the right there. If he just pressed R, it wasn't enough. Perks is now being shadowed by Mithy, so he should be able to survive. G2 Esports looking for their 5th consecutive turret this game.
And pressure on the bot side constantly. That turret is so low. They were just pushing around. They're controlling a vision in the jungle, farming both sides of the map, and that is why the gold lead is just exploding.
Yeah, and of course, with this stage in the game, now G2 need to overstep, right?
Yeah.
10,000 gold lead, 20 minutes in. There's actually not a lot of objectives, to push for just yet. We'll expand that in a minute. Here's a replay of Trick giving up the perfect game.
And this is Karsa doing the right thing with his team, heavily committing to one side of the map and hoping that you get enough. The problem is, yeah, these members will be so damn tanky. They will have so much damage. So Flash Rules, they're in front of an impossible task. Barring a Baron steal, there is no way they come back from this game.
I mean, even a Baron steal at this point, I think, just moves you closer to having some hope. It's not turning the game around. And G2, a lot of times you can criticize teams for playing very slowly when they are this far ahead, but they are always bleeding their opponents out of this situation. So I think, up to this point, I have no real criticism for them.
It's also why in Europe, when they play, you kind of blink your eyes twice and suddenly G2 have a 3,000 gold lead. But no real pivotal moment has happened. There hasn't been any triple kills or massive outplays. They just play really efficient League of Legends where they go for all the camps, they push the right waves, they maximize side lane farm. They're the team that picks up the most farm from 50 to 30 in raw numbers in European LCS, because they just maximize these side lanes.
Yeah, they've been maximizing every lane for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Every single gank, every play has resulted in an advantage. MMD actually used charge for some reason. I didn't quite see exactly why, if it was under pressure from Expect or not, but that charge has not been used offensively a single time in the 23 minutes, and that was a, first phase pick. Flash Wolves eventually lose their 5th tower.
And you can see now that G2 and Flash Wolves are really trying to prioritize vision around the Baron. That is really the next big objective for G2 as they're closing out on the Dragons are down, the outer turrets are out, and they really do need to try to get control of this area.
Yeah, and if we turn our attention to the Flash Wolves, I think they just really exposed a major flaw in their team. MMD got drafted a blind Rumble yesterday, I believe. Now he gets drafted a blind, I will say Scar, a blind Kled here. It feels like he has a very narrow champion pool that they're trying to just give him a comfort pick rather than a meta pick that he will play poorly. We're just getting punished harder and harder every single game.
Now Maple's looking like he's going to get punished. Sanguine Pool will buy some time. Threw down the Hemo Plague as well. I'm looking at the mini-map. Still, Expect continues to shove MMD backwards. Expect's got that Titanic Hydra and Sunfire Cape, winning every single trade. And it's the mid lane's going down as well.
And it's also an item build that's heavily focused on push. You can shove those lanes so fast as Expect here, and he has the Stand United to join, so G2 are straight onto the Baron.
And what a statement here from G2. 2 wins, 3 losses. This will be their 3rd win of the tournament. Shorton is just blown up where he stands. Perks and Expect trying to run down Karsa. Expect's going to be able to solo him out. Spirit's Refuge buys some time. Baron secured actually by Miffy. Trick did get the smite down once again. It's a retreat, not a charge, because MFD's running for his life. Only the 3rd death, that's what G2 are looking for. Scarlet's going to avoid the Shadow Dash as Maple is being burned alive in his Sanguine Pool. Dominating! Sven gets another onto MMD. And Betty watches his team fall around him.
Flash Wolves are just getting decimated here. This has got to be one of the cleanest games, if not the cleanest game of the tournament here from G2, and what a way to start the 2nd round of games.
Yeah, in a phenomenal fashion, G2 Esports bounce back. They tie their score back to 3-3, and their hopes of reclaiming that #1 seed for Europe are still alive.
The largest gold lead at 15 minutes. The largest gold lead at 20 minutes. every single objective and only one criticism.
Trick is inting again.
Gave up the perfect game.
We'll let it slide this time, but just watch the Baron. This is really the only way that Flash Wolves could do anything about this is a steal. So you have Perkz already zoning on the outside, ulting the Shen, take away the only chance that Flash Wolves has to make a positive play there.
Now, man, you got to step back and look at G2. After that 50-minute loss to TSM, where technically they had lost the game for around 46 minutes of those 50, not managing to take down the nexus of those last few hits. The psychological hits, G2 and 8, is it coming back? Is it a possibility to have this kind of game?
G3 and 7, baby.
Going up every year, G4 and 6 next year, tying it up in 2 years or so. No, I think what's great is the fact that they, well, seemingly they're playing a much weaker version of their play on international tournaments still, for the majority of the game. They're not getting affected game to game, so it seems like they're going into every single game fresh again, but something broke down for sure. G2 eSports was a shim, a shadow of their former selves in the first 5 games here. 6-1 is the one on the money.
There we go. You talk about shadow of their former selves. Flash Wolves, they have an on switch and an off switch. They go 0-2 day 1, 2-0 day 2. They're on the verge of going 0-2 day 3. And this was a finalist team coming in, the expectation. So, you know, we talk about the benefits of G2 bouncing back. How on earth do Flash Wolves again bounce back from another 0-2 day?
But G2 also attacked their core, right? Like we talked about Karsa, Maple, Sora. Now the final engage comes in, but it's gonna be tricky.
Yes, indeed. MMD gets a bear trap on a rope, but look at Sven. He's already on a killing spree. Taken down Karsa. Flash Wolves are retreating. The charge had no damage behind it. Expect kills the weeds of Sword Art. And now Maple's cut off from the rest of his team, gets devoured by Mythy and spits out to Expect.
Yeah, Karsa was still jungling while Sora was attacked in the bot lane. Maple was attacked in picks and bans, and by the time Karsa tried to fight back, it was simply too late. And with only a single kill, G2 eSports are going to take it.
G2 eSports with the most dominating victory of the MSI 2017 group stage. Take down Flash Wolves to go 3-3.
Just such a good game from them. And I mean, this has got to give you so much confidence going forward. We talked about how tough of a schedule these teams have from 2 and 3 to make it into the final games, and they're off to a great start.
Look at the expressions on the faces of Flash Wolves and G2. G2 earlier today, distraught at the TSM loss. This time, ecstatic at the Flash Wolves victory.
Yeah, and I'm just happy for the guys that they get to bask in the fandom again. Look at Perkz. Like, he had to go through so many like negativity and comments when he tried to portray the bad boy image that the fans seemingly wanted, but then when he gave it to them, he couldn't really deal with it, in my opinion. Now, even in Hamburg in the finals when they're playing so well, they didn't have the crowd behind them. He gets to walk around here and you see his face light up every time he sees the cheers. Like, oh, you're cheering for me?
Yeah.
I guess so. Like, let me just like, enjoy this.
I just don't, like, this group stage is causing me more questions than answers. Gigabyte Marines take down Team WE in one of their most impressive performances. G2, who have looked really, you know, weak all tournament long, have the most dominant victory all of a sudden.
And I think one of the important things here for G2 is also the way in which they won. A lot of criticism has been leveled towards Trick and Expect. They both had a great game, and I think that can spell good things for them going forward.
But it is Expect on Shen and Trick on Graves. And these have been long-lasting signature, like, comfort picks for them. The problem is, any team that is doing their drafting properly will not give Graves over to Trick. And if they do, they will take Karma Wu in return, and then can G2 deal with that aspect?
And the cheers there, of course, that was for Sven making his way off stage a little bit earlier today, actually. He spent around 10 or 15 minutes just signing the Thunder Sticks for the crowd and really just soaking up the atmosphere here in Rio. And that was a deserved victory for G2. They just outclassed Flash Wolves every step of the way.
I mean, the fans here really have been incredible. You have to love that they're cheering equally as hard for every team, for every good play, and I think it's a really fun environment for all the players.
Yeah, and it just means so much. Speaking from experience, those are memories that I still hold from like all those events where people just go bonkers. G2 will definitely like enjoy like these little moments.
Well, 3 wins, 3 losses. For a closer look at how the second stage of the round robin started, let's head over to the analysts.
Thank you very much, Trevor. There is no doubt in my mind that the passion of these fans is helping drive all of these teams in what is a very close race for qualifying for that knockout stage. But quick shot, don't worry. I am just as confused as you are. I have just as many questions as you do about where the heck was this G2 for the rest of the tournament leading up to this game?
Hibernation, maybe? I mean, we can figure out answers. One thing I'll say is they are learning, and they are very mentally tough in comparison to past G2s at international tournaments.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Frost, this was your dark horse. They finally craft a beautiful, dominant win here. How are you feeling?
Man, you see, I did hardcore research on G2. I watched pretty much all of Europe. I watched the finals, and I was watching the region. I was like, damn, they're super exciting. Like, there's really creative stuff going through. I think they're an incredibly intelligent team. So I was like, I'm actually really on the G2 hype train coming into MSI. And then we kind of had to pump the brakes. We hit a couple speed bumps. We're swerving all over the road. But we found it. We're on the right track.
Absolutely. We're now in the carpool lane, cruising at a nice speed here for G2. But it all comes back to the early game. The questions we had around the early game, we saw them put together a decent one against SKT, not against anyone else. But here we go. What a beautiful early game.
And it was a very delayed introduction of Trick into the early game, into this tournament in many ways as well. Finally goes for that very fast gank. We confirmed that it was an experienced Quinn that allowed him to go from Raptors Red into Scuttle Crab into the gank down bottom lane, and it was an adaptation that just wasn't at all like he'd been playing recently, and in general for G2. So late game focused, so many games in a row, and surprising to see them so quickly adapt way back to their older style.
And that's the thing. If you're going to play late game well, it doesn't mean you can't play early game aggressively. So experienced Quint, planning the gank, and helping out Sven before 4 items so he can still do well. I mean, it translated to the rest of the map, the amount of pressure they're able to generate with that game.
And I love your point, because you look at the draft, and it's very G2-esque for the previous games. There still was Orianna. Twitch takes time to come online. I looked at it and I'm like, okay, we're going 35 minutes, we're going 40 minutes, and then Trick threw that playbook out, and everyone played to amplify him. So you can see why it's kind of the heart and soul of this team, especially in the early game.
I'm getting word that perhaps he didn't have an experience Quinn.
Hey, I'll fight that. I checked all eSports during the game, and it showed he had
so
it. Not to mention,
we're going to get some clarification on that, but in the meantime, regardless, the thought process was there, as was mentioned. And, hey, when we were watching Champs Select, right at the beginning, we're like, Ivern's open. That should be the go-to pick. But I do like the confidence to go for the Graves and then play it in that aggressive fashion, even in a comp that would be happy to scale a little bit too late. Frost, back to you.
Exactly. It's the one thing that would then speed up that composition. If you go for the Ivern, yeah, he can make early game plays, but if you look at the rest of your assets there, you've got, Hyper Carry in the bottom lane, you've got the Shin in the top lane. Like, Ivern, he's not going to be great at snowballing that. The Graves is the guy who's going to be that bridge from early mid-game.
All right, so now I want to push us through the rest of the early game, because it wasn't just that one gank, right? We saw 16 kills put together for G2 throughout the course of the game, but a lot of them came early.
I've seen this angle of gank before, but it's because they've hit level 6 on Expect. They immediately utilize the Shen. And credit to Expect right there for having the lane pressure in order to make up that play and not allowed to be disrupted by the Kled in any way.
But Expect, and Trick in particular, is leading these plays. As you can see, it's just a different Trick, not defensively on Nunu, not on the Ivern either. And the Korean duo just approaching from different angles on the same page in a way we haven't seen in the first 5 games.
And it's just lovely to see Trick kind of return to his domestic form. You know, domestically, he was known for his creative pathing, his ability to work with his laners, it particularly perks around that mid lane. Yeah, it started out in the bottom lane, but it's nice to see him kind of return to that old form.
Yeah, and the way that they didn't take bad trades once they were ahead and continued to do good things. First game of the tournament, they had a 2,000 gold lead, and then they traded Rift Herald for 2 turrets of their own, which was terrible. In this game, they did none of that. They didn't give away any turrets. They were finding the 90-10 plays without having to give up anything. This was really the quintessential game that G2 fans wanted to see.
And then it forces Flash Wolves into these really awkward situations where Karsa wants to make something happen on the map. He ends up trying to force that gank top lane, and he has to do that because there's no other options for him anywhere else.
Yeah, you say they didn't have to take bad trades. In fact, they forced Flash Wolves into bad situations. Let's take a look at this. 1430 Flash Wolves top lane dive here. Frost, walk me through it.
And again, just look at the rest of the map right here. Like, Karsa, this is so forced, and it's because it is. He has no other options. He can't gank for his Vladimir because the Vladimir he's already shoved into inner tower, and he can't gank for his bot lane because what bot lane? It doesn't exist anymore. It's just roaming around on the map trying to find any sort of extra gold. And then Perk shows up and is like, you're not supposed to be here, and I'm going to pick up the double kill anyway.
Yeah, the classic shockwaveless double kill. But we've heaped a bunch of praise on G2, and I do now kind of got to move to Flash Wolves because I was hyping them up before the tournament.
We all
thought they were going to be the #2 seed, but the problems they are still showing weakness in the top lane, weakness in the bottom lane. NL and Betty, if you turn the nameplate off, I'd feel like they'd be the same player and he was supposed to be an upgrade. It's still feeling like this is a Maple Karsa team. And Maple got targeted in the ban phase pretty heavily during this game. So I'm not sold on this Flash Wolves because it doesn't seem like they've actually improved since the last time they failed to make it at a group stage at Worlds.
And when Trick had the pressure on Karsa, when he was getting the ganks off, trade became a dirty word because it was a single kill. No turrets, no Drakes, nothing doing for Flash Wolves once Trick had control of the jungle matchup.
Struggles for Flash Wolves continue, but G2, this is going to be a big win and some momentum for them moving forward through the tournament. Time now for us to throw it down to Shox, who's standing by with G2's support. So let's catch up on stage.
Thank you very much, guys. Indeed, standing by here with Mithy after the most convincing victory of the group stage of the entire MSI, which is quite a surprise seeing what happened earlier in the day. So I just wanted to ask you kind of how you've lived through this day and rebounded from that TSM loss and converting it into such an amazing game here.
Well, honestly, the TSM loss really sucked a bit. I thought it was really lost after early game, and then we managed to hold, and it was so close for us to win. I think if any small thing would have changed, we probably could have won that game. So we tried to just shake it off and be like, well, if we were 8K down and we still made TSM fight until 1 HP next to us, then we actually played a good game, and it just sucks that we can only play one game against them in a row, So we just focused on the next game, talked for the two post games about draft, and we ended up having a good draft for today for this game, and yeah, pulled it through.
Yeah, you guys pulled it through. It was very convincing. So, but that is then, of course, the big question when we're looking at G2 playing here so far. It's been quite up and down, and it's been a lot of games where you're kind of coming back. So why do you think it is that the stability isn't quite there yet?
Well, we have only won early game against SKT, which we sucked really hard and made their own decisions. And obviously SKT is SKT, so they also did very well, and we failed. But other than that, we've lost every early game in this tournament, and we've managed to get some wins anyway. So yeah, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose the early game. It's all about how you play as a team and how you can come back from a deficit. And I think we have not been playing perfect, but we have been doing all right. And yeah, we gave a challenge to TSM. We won a game against Flash Wolves when we were pretty far behind. So we were just been chipping in wins, and now we actually got one early game that was on our favor, and it kind of showed that we were also good at snowballing games.
Yeah, it did. You showed a little bit of everything. And I know, obviously, with the history of G2, you are one of the players that has taken that all very much to heart. You've also spoken to kind of the fandom here and how much positive energy everything is giving you. Can you kind of explain what it is, what's in the air here, and how it lifts your spirits?
I don't know. Being in EU and just playing there is so much different to being here. It's like when you're there, there's the fans that cheer for other teams. They even boo you in EU, and it just feels so much different than being here. Here, I was playing the game right now. Basically, before I even go on stage, everyone is cheering for me. When I leave the stage, everyone is cheering for me, win or lose. And then while I'm on stage, this game we were winning, right? And I check the crowd for a second, and I see lights all over my our team names being chanted. It's amazing. I mean, thank you guys. You're fucking awesome.
They can't hear you, but they've seen you and they've been cheering for you, so I'm sure they get the message. But thank you very much, Mithy. Congratulations on this victory. We were looking forward to what G2 can show us next, but we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's SKT up versus the Gigabyte Marines. Stick around.
Source traded as well. Get the gobble if you can. Mozzie gets one. That's not going to be enough for a kill just yet. Spits out Sword on for first blood to G2.
But here's Trick in the bot lane again.
No summoners.
Going to dash forward. Where's the dash? Shadow dash from Expect is going to catch Sword on. Betty's the target as well. Expect's on the board. Sven gets another. Trick goes in into the line. Collateral damage gets fired. Here comes Expect. He's got Maple. Trick survives and takes Karsa with him. Mithy's brought perks. That's one already with the attack in the distance. Shockwave not even going to get needed. There's the hula hoop sombrero. Perks doesn't need it. Still gets a double kill. Scarlet's going to avoid the shadow dash as Maple has been burned alive in his sanguine pool. Dominating G2 eSports with the most dominating victory of the MSI 2017 group stage. Take down Flash Wolves to go 3-3.